I flew 12 hours, across 3 states, through 3 separate delays, with one goal: to surprise my husband. Jake had no idea I was coming to his cabin weekend. I imagined the look on his face when I showed up with his favorite bourbon, a bottle of Blanton's I had to call 3 stores to find. I even tied it with a red ribbon. It was the kind of romantic gesture he used to say made him fall in love with me. The sun had already dipped behind the trees when I pulled into the gravel lot outside Cabin 7. The air smelled like pine and smoke, and laughter floated from behind the door. I felt ridiculous for being nervous. We'd been married 5 years. He'd told me he missed me just yesterday. "The guys are playing poker and grilling steaks," he'd said on our video call. "Wish you were here, babe." Well, now I was, the thigh. Bourbon felt heavy in my hand as I stepped onto the porch. I paused, heart pounding in anticipation. I wanted the surprise to be perfect. I wanted him to feel loved. I wanted, God, I don't even know anymore. Then I heard his voice. It filtered through the wooden door, low and clear, the kind of tone he used when he was trying to sound smart, logical. "If she vanished," Jake said, "the payout would cover everything. No more debt, no more begging." A burst of laughter followed from inside. "You're insane," someone replied. "Or finally date her cousin without guilt." More laughter. The smile slid off my face. I froze, hand still gripping the bourbon, the red ribbon fluttering in the breeze. My first instinct was denial. I must have misheard. Maybe they were joking. A sick, twisted guy joke. Right? Then Jake spoke again. "2 million, man. Took some convincing to get her to sign those papers. Told her it was about securing our future in case something happened." Every hair on my body stood up. My chest tightened. I pressed my back against the side of the cabin and clutched the bottle like it might anchor me. "Dude, that's cold," another voice said, laughing. "Cold, but genius." "She's sweet, but boring," Jake replied. And I knew it was him, knew that tone, the way he lowered his voice when he thought he sounded clever. Always worried about disappointing her dad. Her cousin's more fun anyway. My cousin, Casey. Couldn't breathe. I had married a man who was now planning my death, for insurance money. A man who looked me in the eye and kissed me goodbye 3 days ago. A man who told me he loved me while making arrangements to erase me. The bourbon bottle slipped from my hand and thudded against the porch. I didn't even hear it hit. I was already backing away. Slowly. Silently. I left it there, still wrapped, right by the door. I didn't knock. I didn't scream. I didn't burst in and confront him like some tragic movie heroine. I ran. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I didn't stop moving until I was back in the rental car, heart hammering like it might crack my ribs. My fingers fumbled with the keys. My breath came in short, panicked gasps, but somehow I managed to drive. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a destination. I just knew I couldn't go home. Not to the house I shared with him. Not to the life we built on lies. The man I'd trusted with everything had been casually plotting my death over beers and poker chips. And I'd almost knocked on that door. I almost handed him a bottle of bourbon and walked into my own execution. 2 hours later, I was in a motel off the interstate, wrapped in a scratchy blanket, still in my travel clothes. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise, replaying every conversation we'd ever had, every red flag I'd dismissed. I thought about the prenup he didn't want to sign, about the day I paid off his student loans as a wedding gift and he joked, "Guess I'm officially your investment now." I thought about how I'd covered the down payment for our house, how every setback in his so-called business turned into a loan from me, how he called me his angel whenever I wrote the next check. I thought about how many times he'd suggested we try adventurous things, skydiving, mountain climbing, swimming past the buoys. I thought he was trying to push us to live fuller lives. Now I realized he was hoping for an accident, something that wouldn't raise suspicion, something the insurance company would pay out on. I couldn't go back to that life. Not to the man who looked at me and saw a payday. Not to a marriage that had become a con. I needed distance, anonymity, time to think. By that afternoon, I'd booked a one-way ticket to Costa Rica under my maiden name, Elena Hartwell. I didn't tell a soul, not my friends, not my father, not even Casey, who, now, I wasn't sure I could trust. The hotel I chose was a faded little place in Tamarindo, set back from the beach behind a row of palm trees and sunburned surf shops. No one there cared who I was. The woman at the front desk handed me a key without asking for ID. My room smelled like salt and lemons. The walls were whitewashed. There was no air conditioning, only a ceiling fan that ticked in a lazy circle, overhead. It was perfect. For 3 days I didn't leave. I ate fruit and crackers from the corner store. I let my phone die and stashed it in the safe, along with my passport and wedding ring. I stared at the ocean from the balcony and tried to remember who I was before Jake. Before all the manipulation, the careful grooming masked as love. On the 4th day, I cut off my hair. It was impulsive, necessary. Jake loved my long hair, called it my signature, but I didn't want anything left of the woman he knew. I walked into a tiny salon run by a woman named Marisol, pointed at my reflection and said, "Make me look like someone else." She smiled like she understood more than I'd said and got to work. 40 minutes later, I left with a blunt, shoulder-length bob and a face I barely recognized. It felt like shedding skin. That same afternoon, I found a little art shop near the edge of town. The owner, a soft-spoken man named Miguel, taught painting classes in the back. I hadn't picked up a brush in over a decade, not since college. I used to be good, back when I believed in joy for its own sake. Miguel handed me a brush without asking questions, and I sat beside a group of strangers painting sunset skies while a parrot squawked from a nearby tree. Day by day, I started to return to myself. I learned how to order coffee in Spanish. I stopped checking the news. I started sleeping. Miguel said my paintings were sad but strong. "They look like they're trying to speak," he told me, "but no one's listening." One morning, a week after I arrived, I walked to the cafe near the plaza for breakfast. While waiting for my coffee, I borrowed a local's newspaper. And there, buried on the 3rd page, was a headline. "Local man reports wife missing after emotional breakdown." There was a photo of me, my driver's license picture. The article said I'd disappeared without a trace, that I'd been struggling mentally for some time, that I'd shown signs of paranoia. I nearly laughed. Jake hadn't just planned my death. He'd started erasing my credibility long before I left. He was building a narrative, the fragile, unstable wife, the woman who cried wolf, who got confused, who imagined things. It was brilliant, in a horrifying way, and it meant only one thing. He'd done this before. That night, I logged into a secure email I hadn't used since college and contacted my old family attorney under a fake name. I asked him to refer me to a private investigator, someone discreet, someone off the books. The name he gave me was Lena Ortega, a former FBI agent turned freelance. I reached out that same night. 2 days later, Lena replied, "I've done this kind of work before," she wrote. "If you're ready to know what your husband's been hiding, I'll find it. But once you go down this road, there's no pretending you didn't see it." I didn't hesitate. "Show me everything," I wrote back. "I need to know exactly who I married." The report came 3 days later. It arrived in an encrypted folder, sent to the secure account I'd set up through Lena. I waited until the sun had set, until the crashing waves outside my hotel room were the only sound in the world. Then, I clicked it open, hands trembling. Not from fear, but from something colder, more focused. The first file was a summary of Jake's financials. It didn't take long to see the truth. He wasn't running a business. The consulting firm he claimed to be building had no website, no clients, and no tax filings for over a year. But what he did have was debt, hundreds of thousands in gambling losses owed to men whose names came up on more than one criminal database, high-stakes poker, offshore betting rings, and worse, he'd maxed out his personal credit cards, sold a rental property I didn't even know he owned. And 3 months ago, he took out a loan against our house, forging my signature on the paperwork. The payment was due next month. If he defaulted, he'd lose everything, unless his wife died in a tragic accident. The next file showed something, even darker. 6 months after our wedding, Jake had taken out an additional life insurance policy, $5 million, with himself as the sole beneficiary. The signature on the application was a forgery, but it was close enough that no one would question it unless they had a reason. He'd slowly increased the coverage over time, citing business risks and long-term planning in emails to our financial advisor. I stared at the screen, numb. The man I'd once trusted with my future had been playing the long game, from the beginning. Not just theft, not just betrayal. This was premeditated, patient, precise. But the worst came last. Buried in a folder marked personal, Lena had included a handful of screenshots, messages between Jake and my cousin, Casey. At first, they were innocent enough. Catching up, compliments, a lot of, "You've always been easy to talk to," and "Wish Elena and I had what you and I have." Then they became something else. Jake. "She's not who she used to be. Always anxious, always paranoid. I think something's wrong with her, Casey. She seems fine to me. Maybe she's just stressed?" Jake. "I just don't want her dragging us both down when we could be something real." Us, both. He was grooming her, slowly, strategically, testing boundaries, setting the stage. I didn't know how far it had gone, but I didn't need to. I saw enough. It made sense now. Why Casey had moved in with us temporarily after college. Why Jake always insisted she join us on vacations. Why she'd been distant the past few months, avoiding calls. I'd thought she was overwhelmed with work. Now I wondered if she felt guilty. Or complicit. I closed the laptop and stared at my reflection in the dark window. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, still, listening to the wind and the sea, and the quiet rage building in my chest. He thought I was gone. He thought I'd disappeared, conveniently broken, out of the way. And now, he was starting to collect. I opened a new document and began to type. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a confession. It was a record, a log of everything I had learned, everything I had felt, and every step I was about to take, because I wasn't running anymore. The next morning, I called Lena. "It's time," I said. She didn't ask what I meant. She just said, "Understood." With her help, I had the forged documents compiled into a legal packet, ready to be submitted to the insurance company and, if necessary, to federal investigators. We locked down my assets, froze the joint accounts, put alerts on every remaining dollar with my name attached. I contacted a second attorney, one who specialized in financial crimes and identity protection. By the end of the day, Jake had no access to any of my money, not 1 cent. That night, my prepaid phone rang. It was Casey. Her voice was shaky, panicked, not at all the confident girl I remembered. "Elena, please don't hang up. I know you probably hate me." I didn't say anything. "There are men," she continued, breath hitching. "They came to Jake's house looking for payment. He told them that something had happened to you, and the money was coming. They said he has 3 days. I stayed silent. Then they came to my apartment. They threatened me. They know where I work. One of them, he said if Jake disappears, I'm next. It didn't surprise me. Jake always made sure someone else, paid the price for his mistakes. I didn't know it was this bad, she whispered. I didn't know what he was doing to you. I swear. My voice came out calm, almost cold. I believe you, but you need to disappear, Casey. Sell your car, stay with someone Jake doesn't know, and don't contact him again. She was crying by the time we hung up. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel anything at all. The next day, I contacted a third person, Carlos, my father's old private security consultant. I arranged for discreet surveillance on Jake. Nothing flashy, just eyes on him from a distance. If he tried to flee, we'd know. If he tried to find me, we'd know that too. But what mattered most was what came next. It was time to go home, not to stay, just to finish what I started. I returned to the States under my maiden name, flying into a small regional airport 2 hours outside our city. The final leg of the journey, I drove a rental car through the back roads, bypassing highways and neighborhoods that once felt like home. It was strange how quickly the familiar could turn foreign. The houses looked the same, the street signs unchanged, but I wasn't the woman who had left 3 weeks ago. She was gone, and I had no intention of resurrecting her. Jake didn't know I was coming. That was the point. I parked a block from the house, our house, and waited until dusk. The streetlights flickered to life, casting a dull orange glow across the lawn I once paid a landscaper to manicure. I walked up the driveway slowly, deliberately, like a ghost returning to the scene of her murder. The doorbell was exactly where I remembered it. So was the welcome mat. But the irony was almost too much. Jake opened the door in a t-shirt and pajama pants, his face unshaven, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like hell, and not the kind caused by grief. He blinked. Elena? His voice cracked, like a branch under pressure. He looked behind me, as if expecting a camera crew or police escort. When he saw nothing, he stepped back, stunned. Where have you been? He stammered. I filed a report. I thought something terrible. You did, I said. I walked past him into the foyer, barely noticing the pizza box on the side, table or the sour smell of whiskey lingering in the air. The house was a mess, papers everywhere, dishes stacked in the sink, a coffee table covered in unopened mail. His life was unraveling. Good. I've been watching, I said quietly. From far enough to stay safe, but close enough to see what happens when your lies catch up to you. Elena, please, he said, reaching out like he might touch me. Whatever you think happened, whatever you think you heard, I didn't think. I heard. I dropped a flash drive onto the kitchen island. That's a copy of the insurance call. The one where you increased my coverage. The one I never approved. His face paled. There's also a folder with your gambling records, the offshore accounts, the forged signatures. You've been very busy. He opened his mouth, but I kept going. I know about the house you mortgaged behind my back. I know about the loan sharks. I know about Casey. I know what you told her, what you told the police, that I was paranoid, unstable. Elena, I was trying to protect you, I laughed. It wasn't pretty. You weren't protecting me. You were setting the stage for my funeral. He flinched, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I flew across 3 states to surprise you with a gift, Jake. And instead, I heard my husband talk about my death like it was a business transaction, like I was a roadblock to your next move. He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. I messed up, he mumbled. Messed up, I said, stepping closer. You plotted to kill me. There was a long silence between us, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. Then, I set down a thick envelope. Those are divorce papers. I've already signed. You have until the end of the week to do the same. Once you do, you'll get what's left of the joint account, after I've taken my share, of course. If you don't sign, I send everything I have to the FBI and the insurance fraud division. He looked up finally, desperation in his eyes. Please, Elena, this is our life. No, I said. This was your scheme. Our life ended the moment I heard you say, if she vanished. He stared at me, and for a moment I thought he might explode. But he didn't. He slumped lower, defeated. You're not going to forgive me? He asked softly. No, I said. But I am going to forget you. That's even worse. I walked to the door, pausing only once. Don't come looking for me, Jake. Don't call. Don't ask about me. You wanted me gone? Congratulations. I left him there, in the wreckage of his own making. I didn't look back. 2 weeks later, I was in Costa Rica again. This time in a small white studio overlooking the sea, with canvas stretched across the walls and salt in the air. Miguel had set up a gallery showing for my work. The theme was Ashes and Rebirth. I painted a woman walking away from fire, another holding a lighter over torn wedding photos, another standing barefoot in the ocean, her face turned to the sky. My name, in the catalog, was Elena Hartwell. Not Mrs. Maddox. Not someone's insurance policy, just a woman who survived, and this time, that was more than enough.